Hi, Shuchi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hi, so good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for giving us this wonderful film. I'm just going to quickly check if we're on. Are we, yeah? Do I have to, are we good to go? I should just check with them? No, no, just check if we're good to go downstairs. Sorry, there was a bit of a technical issue. The screening room is downstairs, but we couldn't take the Q&A from there, so we're up over here. But I think we're good to
I
begin.
see.
So, how are you? First of all, thanks so much. It's so lovely to see you again. And it was so lovely
Yeah.
to see your film after seeing it through the years in all of the development process. And I think I had a personal selfish reason for wanting to bring it because I was like, I know everything about the film, except I watched it. So it was such a beautiful film, and congrats on such a lovely film.
Thank you. I'm so glad you reached out and I'm so glad it worked out. I appreciate your gentle persistence over the months.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Took some
yeah,
time, but here we are now.
here we
Uh,
are.
So just because we had a little bit of delays, I'm going to get right into the questions that we all have for you. So just to give you a little context, we're here at Karachi Film School. This is where we're screening it. There's a lot of film students also who would love to hear. I mean, I love to talk about the film, the characters, the story, and then touch upon your experience developing the film also, because
Mhm.
there's a lot of filmmakers and writers who have been very interested in knowing from concept to I think it's yours. Um, Knowing the development process from
Yeah.
concept. And I saw at the end of the credits, I mean, just to give a little background to those who are watching, Shuchi and I were part of the Berlin Film Festival's Berlinale Talents in 2021. We were the Lost Tribe, which was the COVID tribe. So that meant that we were all online. But that was Shuchi, where I believe that the film was in the script station, correct?
Yeah, correct.
And the year after, it was at the co-production market at
Yeah,
Berlin also.
yeah.
Uh, and then when we actually eventually met in 2023 at Berlinale Talents, the film had not released then yet. Or was
No,
it
we were
getting,
in post-production then.
it was
Uh,
production then. Okay, great. And then I saw when when in the credits and stuff, there were a lot of other development labs also.
yeah.
So how long did the film take from the initial concept and seed of an idea to like its eventual exhibition at Sundance, where congrats, it won an award over there, I remember. So how long was that process?
So the Sundance premiere was Jan 2024. And I think the first market that I did was the NFDC Film Bazaar co-production market in India in 2018. And I had a script then, so I want to say I must have started working on it in 2016.
Oh,
So what is
wow.
that? 8 years, you know?
8 year. Okay, yes. So
Yeah.
exactly. So to all of those who want to kind of demystify the process of making a film like this, it's good to know how much time a film like this
Yeah. And
take to
when
make.
I was in film school, everyone said it takes 5 to 10 years to make your first feature. And I thought, oh no, but I will be the exception. And
And you went to AFI, if I'm not
I went to
mistaken.
AFI for my master's.
Okay, so I'd love to talk to you about your experience there also. But coming back to the film, so yeah, describe the concept. Like what inspired you to make the film? Was there sort of, do you have any personal affiliation or experience that also, were you a student at such a boarding school? What kind of was the seed of inspiration that prompted this whole
Yeah.
journey?
I did not go to a boarding school, though I always had this fascination, probably because of reading a ton of Enid Blyton as a kid and reading the
Same.
St. Clair's and Mallory and being like, wow, boarding schools seem so fun.
Yeah, the Mario in the school order, yeah, all of
Yeah.
them.
So, but I was totally day scholar, as they called it in my school all the time. But the ethos of the school is really well known to me. I mean, I feel that every school I knew growing up was like this, that whether it was a convent or mine was like a secular but more Hindu leaning school. They were all had the same ethos that once you became a teenager and developed any kind of desire, any expression of sexuality, certainly for women, It was really tamped down, policed, punished, shamed, all of those things. Not just your uniform lengths, but how you're dressed outside, whether you're talking to boys or not. So I think the very initial seed was kind of a anger, a rebellion at having been forced to grow up in that environment, having been forced to carry all of that shame and all of that weight. So, and not ever seeing a young girl's desire, sexual awakening dealt with in any media in our part of the world. If there was any sexuality, it was something horrible that happened to the female character. It
Yeah.
wasn't like something normal, something mundane, something fun, something where she has agency. So that was the first seed. And then actually the first draft of the script didn't really have the mom. It entirely took place in the boarding school, and the triangle
Oh,
was
wow.
between Meera, Shri, and a teacher. And so the
Oh,
Miss
wow.
Bansal character is a vestige of that earliest draft. But at some point, I was trying to write a short film to make a proof of concept. People always like make a proof of concept. Did I lose you, Matt? Okay, you're back. Um, but it's very expensive to write a proof of concept in a school. So I thought, what about if I take the same character and write something at home? And then the mother appeared. And suddenly I just had this sense the next morning uh, that, oh, the shot by itself is not right, the feature by itself is not right, but together they are a film. And I think that's when like the film sort of came together.
Hmm.
Also, I don't know if it's my internet or yours, but I keep losing you. I hope I am being heard. I don't know.
Okay. If you just give me I can hear you, but I think I'm getting a message saying that it's unstable.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're able to
If
hear
you,
you clearly from our end.
Okay,
oh
great.
yeah? Okay. So, Shuchi, if it interrupts for you, just let me know and we'll figure
Okay.
something out. Okay. But that's so interesting that it was actually kind of like a production consideration and a budget consideration. And like, okay, let's move it to a home and a more intimate, that maybe brought the mother character into the forefront.
Yeah, it is strange. I mean, and that was really for the proof of concept. I thought the feature film will still happen in the school, but I think this thing often happens as writers. I think if you have a thread of an idea here and a thread of an idea there, and neither of them are necessarily fully forming, and then sometimes they coalesce, and then that collision brings something new.
Yeah. Wonderful. And I mean, I love coming of age stories. Who doesn't love a come? I feel like all young girls and young boys, but it's a genre that is so dear to me. And in this one, you have not one person who's coming of age, but both the characters in a certain way who are coming of age. And there's so much that I could say about it, but I'm gonna pick some really lovely like dialogue and moments from the scene. Because I love the fact that it's through Mira's eyes, but you're seeing in essence some Anila's coming of age also. So I had a few notes over here. It's a mother-daughter love story to me also. I mean, there's obviously the obvious love story that's going on between Mira and Srinivas, but I think it's a love story between the mother and the daughter, which I love. There's such a contrast in their personalities, obviously. And I wonder if it's one of those things that it skips a generation, like a parent is in a certain way, and so the child kind of rebels against it. And it's, those type of personality traits always kind of skip a generation. You see Anila as a really, really nurturing figure, but then there's also the rivalry and the sometimes the impetus to assert her authority over Mira in certain moments. Um, a couple of lines that I loved is that when I think Srinivas asked, "Are you still scared of your mom?" And she says, "No, I just can't stand her. Now I just can't stand her." Um, uh, you know, uh, all of the lovely scenes with like, and we'll come to the shots and the cinematography later, but um, the closest on like I think in the beginning when we see Anila when she comes to the school, she reaches out to like do something to her earring or something, she pulls away. Obviously, when she's pinning the sari, she pulls away also. When they're dancing, she kind of plays with her for a little bit, but then she abruptly like ends the game. So there's obviously a lot of, loaded tension over there. A lot of judgment that Mira has towards Anila that we see in a lot of the conversation. But I mean, I think the line that stood out to me the most was, "You brought this trash with his money," when she's talking about that, sort of sexy novel, which was like harsh, really harsh.
Yeah.
Tell me about the dynamics between the two and how you develop those characters and that dynamic.
Yeah, I appreciate the question and the specificity of it. And the thing is that I feel like teenagers can really be cruel in a special way.
Yeah.
It's so important to individuate and separate from your parents. So then Mira and Anila, I think probably in 10 years, Mira will realize she's not that different from her mom. Uh,
Yeah.
but right now, it's very important for her to be like, if my mom is so like out there and oh Priya, oh Shri, and she is so buttoned up and will not show her emotions because she thinks that, she's like defining herself in opposition and has so much contempt for her mother. Use the word judgment. Um, because I think there is a kind of hubris, where you don't see really your parents as full people and you don't really understand what her struggles have been. And that to get to where she is, she has had a fight. She fought her parents to enter this marriage that was forbidden. She was kind of a rebel in her own way. That she is constantly mocked and ridiculed and judged, probably by all the other aunties around. When Miss Bansal says, "Oh, your mom wears this mom sari. I never seen your mom wear a sari."
Mm-hmm.
Which is totally like a knock on her mom. It's a little piece of insult. And so she probably lives with that all the time. And I think she's a strong character to say, I don't care, this
Yeah.
is how I want to live. So there is all of these things that, in the blindness of your youth, Mira doesn't perceive. Uh, and when she does, in the end, which and it's so poignant and heartbreaking, and she probably won't be able to hold on to this. I'm sure tomorrow she will have a fight with her mother. But I think of it sort of as there's a room that was dark and a light on, and even if the light goes off, you have a memory of what you saw. So, like a seed has been sown, this
Like a muscle
relationship
memory.
to
Yeah.
to change. Um, but yeah, in the writing, I have to say that to find compassion for the mother character came later. First, she really, because the teacher initial draft had been a more antagonistic figure, even though I was very interested in this idea of two generations of women who are pitted against each other, because that is what society does. Society really values youth and beauty, and then once you lose that, how can an older generation not have any sense of envy, or
Mm.
feeling of loss, or a feeling that, oh, they have the freedoms that I never got. So that was always an undertone. But, it was a slightly more antagonistic relationship between them. But the film always ended with Shri leaving and the mother and daughter left together. So I had an amazing story consultant on the film through one of the labs, and she said, I see how your film is ending, and I think where you want it to go is, I can see that your real love story is the mother-daughter love story, and it's not with Shri. But in order for that to really work,
Mm.
Mira has to really see her mother. She has Shri for who he is, and then she has to see her mother clearly. And that, I was like, yes, you're right. And almost like, I want to say almost overnight, I wrote the entire key sequence, where I was like, what is sinister about this boy? What problematic about him? Uh, is that there is a kind of, hubris well, of a different kind, where he's like, oh, I'm charming, I can get what I want, I can a little bit pull the wool over the mother and daughter's eyes, and I'm like getting all the attention and having a good time. There's a kind of callousness there. And I think for Mira to see that truly the love underneath all the annoying things, her mom, and then see really her loneliness. I think when I was able to see that, discover that as a writer, I really felt like this relationship had come to where it needed to in the film.
So specifically, are you saying कि the moment that you stumbled upon was Mira's realization of Shree's ways and how he's seeing manipulating or kind of playing a situation and she sees it for what it is? Because I love that moment when he says that, right? Like she just wants attention. And
Yeah,
and it's almost like and this is such a family dynamic thing also. Like you can complain and bitch about your parents to your friends, but if your friends ever say something untoward or rude or with the same language that you might have used for your sister or your mother or whoever, you're like, hey, I can say that, but you can't say that. And so it kind of,
exactly.
and I remember watching
Yeah,
the film and we were discussing it um, amongst ourselves that Shri is so interesting because there's nothing wrong with Shri. He's not he's not a fuckboy or he's not like one of the guys who's, looking up under girls' skirts or he's not, he's definitely manipulative and knows how to play, but he's not malicious. But to
yeah,
me, I think what really like kind of underscored everything was that this is how some guys it speaks to the patriarchy at large that a lot of guys coast through life very easily and don't have to deal with the kind of vulnerabilities and the kind of sensitivities and the kind of defense mechanisms that we do. So they're so like sort of free to coast along, and in a way that kind of makes you resent that also a little bit. When you watch that, you're like, it's just so easy for him to breeze in and breeze out and get
yeah.
his way. I think also something that you mentioned. You were saying the story consultant, the ending that you had in the beginning, because it's interesting, was ending with Shri and Mira's love
No,
story.
no, no. It always ended with Shri leaving and the mother and daughter left alone. But it was just
Oh,
not, it didn't have the emotional heft or the sense of like
land.
understanding that Mira now comes to in the film about her mother, you know?
Got it. So she would have
Uh,
still gone to the incident with the other boys at the school and called her mother for help. But that
yeah,
realizing Shri's role in all of this was the
yeah,
kind of moment. Great. Okay,
yeah,
that's wonderful.
yeah.
And also, I mean, talking of Mira's judgment towards the mother, so where does that come from? I mean, I have some theories, but I want to ask you, where does the disdain and the judgment for her mother do you think stems from?
I don't really know. I mean, it's a complex, right? There's not a simple thing, but I think there's a thing where she sees her mother's life and it feels very small. And she's like, I don't want that for myself.
Yeah.
Like to be
Yes.
so defined by your home and being so worried about whether I'm going to eat, who's going to eat what, who's going to wear what, like
Yeah.
she is more ambitious and she looks down on that and doesn't want that for herself. Um, I think because of having been confined in this way, there is a kind of desperation and neediness that Anila has. Like growing up, I would see this with like friends, moms, or aunties. People who would just be a little bit more chatty or flirtatious with like a sales boy when they went into the "Chalo now, you can do it for me. Come on." You want this desire to feel special and
Yeah.
seen, uh, and which as young people it's very easy to judge, to be like, oh, that's so gross that you want that. Also teachers, I would see teachers in my school who would be a little bit extra flirtatious with the senior boys and share their lunch sometimes. But it just really to think about where that comes from. It's from being trapped in this role and not having anywhere to go, not having any outlets. So, but I think Mira doesn't see that. She only
Hmm.
sees the outward expression. And it's very easy to be contemptuous of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it for me was also because the character of the father, that kind of tied it all together. And you see that in family dynamics so much, and you brought it so beautifully because you use the father character, I'm forgetting his name, but you use him so sparingly, but it's so effective when he comes in because it's like kind of that um uh, lingering, I'll just use the word patriarchy as an umbrella term, but how women obviously absorb it and then it becomes a part of how they, interact with other women, whether it's
Yeah,
judgment, like how Mira does with her mom, or whether it's out of like a defensive protectiveness, like you see
yeah,
when Bansi is like, telling Mira about the skirt and things like that. And uh, I mean, I'll come to Bansi also because she's also a really interesting character. But with the father, you see the dynamic where a parent often, and it's so cruel also, uses a child to kind of, as an ally to hurt their spouse or hurt their whatever, and kind of weaponizes the child's attention, and then whichever way the child kind of aligns. And it's really cruel, and it's in the small, like kind of microist kind of. And so her father's obviously a working person. She looks up to him. She's at. So I
yeah,
saw that as coming from that. The judgment is coming from the father's disdain and the father's dismissal of that, and she
yeah,
absorbs that, projects that back
yeah.
on onto
It's
her
a
mom.
very cruel thing what her father says, no? That, oh yes, yeah, I also didn't know when I married your mom, made a
So
big mistake. And I've heard growing up, I've just heard male figures say that kind of casually hurtful thing all the
all
time.
the time.
That kind of joke, which would get a big laugh. But it's
Yeah,
actually really painful. And you're 100% right that Mira absorbs this. And there is a kind of tug of war between the parents where, like, oh, I am allied with the child. And so, I'm better. So there's a one game of one-upmanship that's going on.
exactly. And like to use them as the,
Yeah.
uh, to make the other one the butt of the jokes.
Yeah.
And in terms of Anila, because there were some contradictions that I noticed in terms of her behavior towards and how she sort of adopts Srinivas into their whole equation. Because there's times when she's really well in the beginning. First of all, there's this okay, coming back to like when we see her in the first shot, in her pink fluffy, she makes an impact. First of all, what an incredible actor. She's such a beautiful, gorgeous
Yeah.
actor. Like
Yeah.
she just stole my heart from the first shot. She's coming there, she's loud, she's proud, she's, playful and stuff. So you can see that she has that kind of confidence in doing that.
Yeah.
And she's a cool mom and she wants to like dance with, her daughter. She's playful. But then when the phone call comes, she gets really strict all of a sudden. Who was that boy and everything? So you're like, okay, so she's assuming
Yeah.
authority and that. But then she invites Shri. Like, if it wasn't for her, this whole thing would not be happening. What motivates her to actually tell her to like bring Shri to the house and let's have a relationship and let's, kind of adopt him? Because this is before she's met him and kind of maybe has a little bit of a liking or enjoyment of his, the banter back
Yeah.
and forth. What motivates her to invite her when she is clearly a little bit on edge? And I guess it comes from the father's rules because later on, when like much later on in the film, when Mira has the sexual and her first experience with him, she's also very strict when Mira comes back home late, and she says, I'll be the one to blame if your
Yeah.
father,
Yeah.
um, if your studies suffer, etc. So these kind of vacillations in Anila's leniency and then strictness, what was at play over there?
Yeah, that's a great question because in some senses, I think in life people have so many complex motivations, and in film sometimes we kind of simplify them, this led to that. But for this mother, I think one at the very beginning when she says, call him home, and she does her little interview, no, what are your intentions, young man? Talk, the first
Mm.
first talk. She's trying to be different than other mothers that she's seen. She's trying to be different than her own mother. She had to sneak around and hide this relationship and has perhaps ended up in a marriage that is not happy, because there was no guidance, there was no nothing. She talks about that other cousin, Riddhi, who ran away. Uh, and because, they
Yeah.
talk about how her parents were so strict that finally, when she went to college, she was like, just ran away. So there's this sense that I don't want to be that. I don't want my daughter to run away. I want,
Yeah.
she's trying to, in her own way, be supportive and be a person, be a parent that her daughter can be honest with. At the same time, it's not easy because the mother is often held responsible for the chastity or behavior of their daughters, if
Yeah.
I ever wore something short, I know they say, your mother allows you to wear that,
Mm,
or the way Bansi says, I've heard he's been coming to your house,
yeah.
which is a dig at the mother's character, that
Yes.
you are an improper parent and your morals are at question. So the mother is often held responsible. And so she also feels the weight of that, that is in contradiction to maybe the kind of freedom that she wants to give her daughter. There's this other pull on her. And then, of course, once Srinivas arrives and she feels a little flutter of excitement. It's not even sexual, I think. It's just this,
New energy.
yeah, new energy. This yeah, person who's just interested in her. What was your school like? Did you have a crush? These things that nobody ever wants to ask her or see her as a person. Then, of course, it becomes even more complex. But initially, I think it's the tug of war of those two things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that speaks to, like, I mean, internalized patriarchy and how women project that onto other women is
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
uh, I mean, in South Asian cultures, especially, we just have so many layers and nuances of that. Often Pakistani dramas. So in Pakistan, we have a very prolific TV drama
Mhm.
culture, and a lot is produced by way of Pakistani television dramas. A lot of they get a lot of flack, a lot of the storylines for showing the Sas Bahu tropes and things like that. And
Yeah.
when when we as writers, as filmmakers, when we're like, no, no, we want to like now change this culture, बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया Sas Bahu pitting women against women. I mean, in fact, I think like a very intelligent conversation with a TV exec, and they were talking from a place of not complete let's say backwards or old-fashioned ideas, but saying, okay, listen, so many women go through this.
Mhm.
The fact that the Sas character has gone through all of this, and then her only little domain of authority over the Bahu is kind of where it comes out. It's such a true and real and current
Yeah.
phenomena that they want to see those characters. They want to be validated somehow when they see
Yeah.
like that dynamic also play out. So it really does a lot in this film. I mean, with Bansi, for example, she does it. Obviously, she's well intentioned. You can see the genuine relationship she has with Mira, um, and her concern. But like I noted down a line that she had said. I think picking a fight can be harder for the girls.
Yeah.
The fact that she tells Mira, when Mira reports the skirt issue and the video taking, rather than say, okay, we're gonna go reprimand the boys, and it's about like punishing the boys or addressing that, the more important thing for her to say is that if these videos get out, these girls will be in trouble. And obviously that's her and all her well-intentioned, protection of these girls. But it
Yeah.
just speaks to like how uh yeah, how the phenomenon of policing women,
Yeah.
how it's there. Because yeah, so that was really lovely, like layered all throughout the film, that internalized
Yeah,
patriarchy
the
and
patriarchy lives in all genders, you know.
all. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's like that
In
is the
all
water
cultures
we
and
all
all
swim in.
generations, and
Yeah,
comes out in a kaleidoscope of ways.
yeah.
And in terms of authority, so Mira is clearly, she's the head prefect. She has a lot of authority. The teachers love her. She's a teacher's pet. She enjoys being a teacher's pet.
Mhm.
Um, you can see it when she even, in the beginning, in the opening assembly, when she's kind of doing it. She's not harsh, but she's very kind of stern.
Yeah.
Um, how is it so easy for her to bend the rules for herself? And does she have any awareness of doing that, or is it just, it's young love, so all the rules go out the window?
Great question. I've never considered it. I mean, I think I'm sure there is some conflict, but I think as soon as she begins to feel the desire and feel that this doesn't feel wrong, you know,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that. I think like probably until then she is policing her fellow classmates in her position as head prefect in an uncomplicated way. But once she begins to break the rules, and then she has to pull Priya aside and say, "Hey, I've been seeing you are talking a lot to Vikrant." You you can see that that is now it is a self-protective, Pansi saw me with Shri, so I'm going to now, talk to Priya and be like, hey, don't do the thing. But you can see it's no longer like without any complications. She may not have thought about it. I think the hormones are raging and she's
Mm.
exploring this young love. She's not stopping to think that how does it conflict, probably only stopping to think that we should not get caught. Stakes are very, very high. But I think when she's called to discipline her friend, I think that internal conflict is when she really feels it. She was like, oh shit, I'm doing this. Like, I'm doing way more than probably Priya is doing, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like even in the internet cafe, I was like, okay, moving on. We're
Yeah.
moving swiftly. Um, I have so many more questions and fun discussion things, but I think I should move on from. I'm trying to like look at my list and see where I should go. I guess to kind of like not wrap up the storyline and the character arcs, but what would you say at the end of the film are Meera and Anila's view of puppy love versus big dog love?
Mm,
Kind of like,
God.
d does Anila, I mean, because she cautions against that. So what would Anila's version of big dog love be? Since she hasn't really kind of maybe
She
even
hasn't
experienced that
experienced it. She
husband.
hasn't had a
Yeah.
chance. Her puppy love became her
So it's an
husband.
abstract notion still for her,
I think for
maybe.
her it's abstract, but I think I don't. I hope they both feel that there is a possibility for Mira,
Yeah.
that that cycle could be interrupted for her.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
neither of them know what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. And coming to, because I love the ending shots, obviously, when she's putting the oil in her hair, and that brings me to a lot of the selection of shots that you had. Very tight, a couple of things that I noted. First of all, when we see them in their intimacy, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the intimacy was seen through windows and doors and maybe partially obscured. As it was very sort of voyeuristic, like looking into their when they had the intimate shots. There was a lot of, I feel like, symbology of grills on windows, doors, locks, talas.
Hmm.
Then of course a lot of like you had a lot of wonderful close-ups, hands, intimacy. I mean, whether it's Meera and Shri, whether it's the mother trying to approach the daughter, and obviously then in the end, the kind of like lovely closing image that we have of,
Hmm.
her oiling her hair, which is such an intimate moment, and all the hug in the on the motorbike before that, which was a wider shot, obviously. But talk to me about your choice of shots, the cinematography style. How did you kind of come upon that with your cinematographer, and also even going uh, beyond that, your choice of the aspect ratio?
Yeah. So our cinematographer Jui Peng, she's a dear friend. She shot my previous short film. She shot a couple of films that I've produced. So we have like this long collaboration. And she was actually developing her own feature to direct at the same time as Girls. And we also ended up being in a script lab together in 2019. So for like 2 weeks, intensively workshopping each other's scripts. So she just deeply knew this script for many, many years. And she can narrate beat by beat the subtext of any scene,
Okay.
And so she, this first episode is just deeply understood the script, and then our kind of North Star while shooting was the cinematography should let us into Mira's experience. The film is very tightly Mira's point of view. We
Yes.
don't find out things that she doesn't know. We see characters through Mira's eyes. So when she has judgment towards her mother, hopefully we are led to feel that, when she softens, we feel that with her. When she sees Sri through rose-colored glasses, when she first time goes to the astronomy club and she's seeing, his like him talking and his hands, and we see that. And then when
Mm.
the kind of rose-colored glasses come off. Hopefully we go on this journey with her. So that was our North Star, that any decision we make is to, create this experience. And then, uh, so I think sometimes being close to Mira, um, sometimes the frames, I think so. Let me talk about the aspect ratio first. What we did was we went and did a lot of referencing. Like, we went to museums and we saw images that we are like, oh, this speaks to us, that speaks to us. Um,
Okay.
Here we both live in New York, and the New York Public Library has this amazing thing called the picture collection, which is basically folders stuffed with clippings of photos. And you can write to the librarians and you can say, can you pull out folders that are mountains, teenagers, sexuality, India, just so we went, and then these are magazine clippings, they are photographs, they are illustrations, just like they're just loosely stuffed in. So we saw, like, I want to say hundreds, if not like a couple thousand photos. And we just took photos of everything that we're like, this speaks to us, this feels like our film. And then put them together and you try to be like, what is emerging? And what emerged was we liked a lot of headroom, so we were
Mm,
liking frames which had verticality,
mm,
because we felt that it situated our character in the world and showed the confines of, the effect of this world. Uh, and we were liking symmetry. And I think some of the school scenes in particular have
you-
almost an oppressive
Mhm.
symmetry, because that it's so like rigid, this
Yes.
world. So we were liking that. But in addition to that, to contrast with that, we were liking like real closeness, intimacy, something that feels very tactile. So, like the hands, picking up the cup of chai, all of those things. So, from that, I think emerged our aspect ratio, the fact that sometimes there's headroom, but sometimes we collapse the headroom and you feel like you're right there in Mira's head and you're so close that you almost feel like you can hear her breathe.
Mm,
Um, so that, and then in scenes, the way we would approach scenes is often, this is a film where a lot of the important things are not said. What is happening is in the subtext. So I think a lot about blocking, like how do I block in a way that we can communicate this subtext? How, if Mira is on the outs, once they're in the house, Mira, Shri, and Anila, a lot of it is about who's on the outs, who's in, how does this
yeah. Yeah.
triangle break up into different twos, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
what is going on. So to use the architecture
Of the
to
house.
create this separation when
Yeah.
Anila and Shri are talking in her bed right before that, like about that novel, and and Mira is separated, then you see her through the structures, you feel that she's on the outside. So how to use the space and the blocking to
Mm,
communicate the subtext, and then what will communicate that. So like in the scene where Anila makes 3 cups of chai and she doesn't bring Mira's. She leaves
mm.
it in the kitchen.
And she has
Then
to go.
where the camera is positioned is then, Anila and Shri are at the table and Mira is in a different room, separated in the background, receding, smaller. So a lot of kind of decisions were made sort of like based on that. Um, and then just this is not exactly related to framing, but I think Julie also knows that she basically the film lives and dies by the performances.
Yeah.
There's nothing to hide behind. There's no like stunts or special effects, nothing. It's just the performances.
Yeah.
And so also to develop language that is not super complicated, where we allow actors a lot of freedom. So if they to
Yeah.
move, there's not like always have to hit their mark. They have to catch the light over there. because that's not conducive to being the best film for this type of script. Yeah.
We have okay, a few questions, whatever. What you're saying brings me right to the casting. Um, Such amazing. I believe Anila, the actor who plays Anila, she is a maybe a theater. She I mean she's an actor who's been a theater actor, and she's had a prolific acting career. Mira is so young and she's so amazing. They're both so amazing. How did you go about the casting? And you spoke a little bit about the rehearsal in the sense of like the blocking and the kind of, but how did you also approach the rehearsal process for the
Yeah.
actors, with the actors?
And so the casting for
So
Kani, who plays Anila, I've been a big fan of for years. She's incredible. So when we made our first list, this is cast by Dilip Shankar, who's amazing. He's such a he's so senior and he's kind of like a saintly figure, you know. So he and I both were fans of Kani, though we thought she might be a little young to play the mom. We weren't sure. And because our industry is so sexist, there are many actresses at that age who don't want to play mom to a teenager because then they feel like it typecasts them.
yeah,
Uh, but Kani is kind of uniquely free and blah and does not care, you know. She's like,
yeah,
so she well, let's ask. And from her first audition, I was obsessed basically.
yeah.
She did two scenes. One was like the "What Are Your Intentions, Young Man" with Shri. And I felt when I watched her audition tape, so simple, but I felt like I was so anxious. I was on the edge of my seat because I didn't know if she was going to get angry and snap at him or smile and flirt or be motherly because I felt like she had all of these impulses and it wasn't clear which one was going to win out at which moment. And which I
Yeah.
thought was so essential for this mother, this
Hmm.
feeling that because she doesn't always know what she's going to do. Like,
Yeah.
really, Anila is not that self-aware, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
so I appreciated Kani being able to bring that. And then Meera and Shri were a big search. Uh, Lots of trained actors also auditioned because, you know, it's a big film industry. There are lots of young actors at that age who have credit. And we were trying to cast 20 and above. So Meera Preeti was 21, I think, and Kesha was 22. We were open to 18 and above too, but I realized very quickly that the 18, 19, they looked right, but they didn't sometimes deeply understand the script. There was a kind of maturity jump
Hmm.
that happened after 2021 that I felt like, oh, these actors really
Yeah.
understand the script, you know? So it felt like the younger
Interesting.
ones maybe
Yeah.
won't work. So we were auditioning them. So they were trained actors and also an open call. And they both, Keshav and Preeti, both came through open calls. Because with the trained actors, sometimes I had the feeling that a sharp script analysis and they hit all this, but there's a kind of aliveness that is missing. You know, because
Hmm.
people are really unexpected. If you're angry, you might smile, you know, because
Yeah.
it's unpleasant to be angry or it's not safe to be seen as angry, or when you're sad you might whatever, people do strange things all the time, and I am looking for that kind of aliveness where it doesn't feel very predictable going from beat to beat. Like all
Mhm.
I want is like this feeling that you're like a three-dimensional person, and I think Preeti
So she
really
had
had that.
no
And the
acting.
other thing that
She had no acting experience.
I
Like,
think she had done one short. She had done one short film, and she was in her college theater group.
okay,
So it's not
incredible
that.
casting.
So she incredible, and just and a strength. A lot of the young women who auditioned for Meera had the instinct there. One of the audition scenes was the astronomy scene, the first time Shri and Meera talk. And a lot of people had the instinct to play it very giggly, shy, the way we are used to seeing women on screen. This is how we see women
Mm,
fall in love on screen, being silly
yes.
and retiring and shy. But she was real, and I would always tell them, my note would always be, but you are the head prefect. And
Hmm.
the way Preeti played it was like that, that she
Yeah.
liked this boy, but she had a lot of dignity, and that yes, she was going to break the rules and she had come, but she was not going to let go of that. And this
Yeah.
line is what felt like Mira to me.
Yeah. Incredible. What an incredible performance it was. I was blown away. I didn't actually know how old she was. I hadn't looked it up, but she looks, I mean, she looks the part for sure, but
Yeah,
now you're saying she was 21, but incredible, incredible instincts. I have personal, like I need to answer this one. The color palette, especially with what Mira wore, like I might be misremembering some things, but I saw her in a lot of pinks and blues and pastels, which I feel like changed as her arc happened. I feel like after the first kiss, she was fully in pink.
yeah,
After the incident with the boys who are harassing her at school, I think she wears black. And then there's of course, a red sari that she wears of her mother's during Teachers' Day. So talk to
yeah,
me
yeah,
about the colors with Mira.
yeah. So I love it in a broader sense. So there's like two worlds in the film, right? There's the school and there's the home. And the school is all blues and greens of the mountains, and it's like cool tones. And the home and Anila are often in warmer tones. So Anila, when she comes to school, she's wearing like a deep maroon. When she comes, she's wearing this pink. She wears this bright yellow. So she's always in these like warmer tones.
Which, yeah.
And Mira in the beginning is in cool tones. So she's in contrast to her mother because she is like, she defines herself in opposition to the mother. But as the film progresses and it's both her sexual awakening, but it's also her coming closer to her mother. So, she wears the pink, which is like on the cooler end of the warm tones. And then then she wears her mom's sari, she wears the red. And then she does the key scene, she's kind of wearing a yellow dress. And then in the final scene, actually, the mother and daughter are sort of in a similar pastelly warm toned, closest together in terms of color palette. So it was really like their arcs that we were thinking as we were thinking about the colors.
Yeah, exactly. And definitely contrast between the two, but really lovely.
Yeah,
Just beautiful everything on the screen. I want to do a quick time check because we have a couple of questions, but there's also the questions on development of the film. How much time do you have? I think you
I have
don't.
about 10 more minutes.
Okay, so I will quickly, because we do have film students, we have writers who are very interested in, and just film students. We're here at Karachi Film School, like I said. So I'm going to jump to some development and production questions.
Great.
Um,
Sure.
Describe the 8 years that you had. Well, you know what? I'll put it in this way also. In Pakistan, our Arab cinema scene has gone through a lot of ups and downs. We've had a lot of censorship, a lot of different rules. Things have gone, there's an really unfortunate divide between um, India and Pakistan, though we have the same, aesthetic and taste and culture. We want to watch each other's film. That's big setback, I think, in the industry also. But in Pakistan, we don't have as prolific, unfortunately, a cinema industry as obviously India does. But if I talk about in sort of conventional terms, like in India, there's Bollywood, there's mainstream films, which you would call the
Yeah.
typical Bollywood films. Then there's what I say Indian films, like I mean, Lunchbox could be one of them, and then there's indie international films that are
Yeah.
coming from, yeah. So they're kind of three
Yeah.
different categories.
Yeah.
Yours I would put more in the sort of international,
Yeah.
category. Did you write with an audience in mind when you were writing? This was actually a question from a writer and a student at Karachi Film School. Do you have an audience in mind when you're writing, or do you just write freely? And obviously, you have a specific sort of trajectory. You went to AFI, so you're very much vested in, like, sort of maybe perhaps type of cinema. that allows you
Yeah.
to have maybe a freer hand than filmmakers in maybe India who are getting
Yeah.
financing there. You also mentioned that it began at is it NDFC Film Bazaar जो इंडिया में है
NFDC, NFDC, NFDC.
NFDC.
Huh? It happens at the same time as IFFI.
It happens.
So it's put on by the National Film Development Corporation of India, NFDC.
Okay, so a couple of questions I'll so far in one. Do you have an audience in mind when you write? And then when you're pitching to these various different bazaars and things, and there's obviously a different audience and a different type of financier or
Mm-hmm.
possible production
Mm-hmm.
partner. Do you kind of have to code switch between that, or it's just, you're staying true to your script? And then I saw a whole list of, development labs in the credits and stuff. So if you can talk a little bit about the process and demystify, like if someone has a script, they don't really have access to, let's say, financing. They want to, what kind of advice do you have and how was your experience with that?
Yeah. So the quick and easy answer about the whether you think about the audience, not while at least I don't think of the audience while writing. I think the writing is the one type as a filmmaker that you get to be in a pure space. Then the world will encroach on you,
Yeah.
and you will have budget constraints and
Right.
actors and locations and all kinds of things. So I had tried to really hold the writing process to be pure and a free playground.
Great.
And
Good.
luckily did not ever have to tailor the script for an audience. However, when you're pitching, you're always tailoring who you're pitching for, you know? So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
pitching in India or if I'm pitching at Berlinale, it's slightly different. If I'm writing a grant for, like for instance, I don't consider mm, my film like an issue film. Not nothing against those films, but I feel that when West funds films from our parts of the world, they're some kind of drama on films are not important unless they deal with issues because just the
Yes.
films about our people and something universal is important.
Yeah.
So when I pitch to those people who want their money, then I will write more. I do think my film is deeply political, but just not an issue film. So then I pull out all the issues, and I highlight and I
And
talk about
brown girl.
whatever,
Yeah.
the oppression of women and and all of these things. And so that's important if I'm talking to somebody who is more like a private financier. I talk about the film that I do think this film is a deeply entertaining film. I don't think it's a watch from an
Mm-hmm.
intellectual distance kind of art house film. I don't know what the screening
Mm-hmm.
was like today, but every time I've been in screenings, it was, there is a lot of like gasps and laughter and leaning in and tension because even though the things are small, but hopefully you feel the stakes and you feel the tension. So in my mind, I say I'm making a drama that feels like a thriller. So then, if I'm talking to a private
Yeah.
financier, I talk about the fact that I do think this is an accessible film. I think it's an entertaining film.
Mm.
It can have a wider audience. So you absolutely tailor it. Um, and that's just
Yeah.
unfortunately what it is. And I'm not lying. These are all things that are in the film, but I'm
Absolutely.
highlighting one or the other.
Yeah, I think it's important
Uh,
to have that industry awareness and when you're talking to different
yeah.
parties.
And then you had a third part of the question that I feel like
Oh,
I've
which was your
forgotten. Did you have?
development? Yeah, I mean, there was a whole host of development labs and
Yes, how should somebody begin if you want to go down the development lab way?
and even your experience, maybe that's like enlightening enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
how to the different
I mean, the truth is, I
development.
totally did not know how to do the first one. Hadn't done it. It's absolutely opaque how you get to having a film funded. So I always say that you have a couple of steps are visible on the take. And so filmmakers who had made films before me said, you apply to all of these labs. And I thought, okay, great, the lab will make my script better. So I applied and make your scripts better. But the other thing I realized over time is that these labs are also curating, so they may get 100 applications or 100 applications and they pick 10. And so there are other people in the industry, whether it's like funders, producers, festival programmers, sales agents, who are looking at these labs as places that are curating to see what projects are coming down the pipeline. So I wasn't totally aware of that when I was applying, but it also becomes a way to put your project on the map. And some labs are more prestigious than others. Like I didn't do I think the most prestigious, like in North America, is Sundance, and then in Europe might be Torino. I didn't get into either of those. They were like Berlinale is considered, regarded well and all of that. And
Yeah.
then almost simultaneously I was applying to film markets, which often happen at the same time as major film festivals. So Berlin has a market, Venice has a market, Toronto has a market, and the markets also do a similar thing. They will 10 or 12 projects that are in development, and they put out a brochure or whatever, and people are production companies, sales agents who are interested will take meetings with you. And so that's another way to put your project on the map and find collaborators. So I found our French producer at the market in India, the ND one, because it's specifically a co-production market. So it's for projects looking for uh, I don't know, I don't actually know if it's South Asian, though I do remember in my year there were Indian films and there were Sri Lankan films. And I think there was a filmmaker from Bangladesh. I don't remember if there was a Pakistani filmmaker. Uh, and there are European producers who are coming to look at films from this region. So we met a French producer, Berlin, sales agent, financiers. So because it was a film not easy to fund in India by, investor money, we had to cobble together from all of these different sources.
Okay, I love a second. And I was asking what point did what point did they come up?
Yeah. Richa actually came on first. She and I are college friends.
Oh,
We had a
okay. Have
long
long-standing relationship.
relationship.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
Years ago, we did a communication program in Bombay together in 2005, I think. And so she and I co-direct my first film. It's a short documentary. She and I were co-directors. And then when I applied to AFI to film school, Richa actually acted in
Oh,
my first app.
wow.
It's like a 5 minute short
Okay.
film. Yeah,
Okay,
it's a
okay.
5 minute short film about an actress who loses her mind due to the sexism of the casting
Extreme?
infrastructure at the industry. Yeah, and this is, I think, a time before Richa had her big break. I think before Oil Lucky came out. And then over the years, we've just remained really good friends and respected each other's trajectory. When I go to Bombay, her home has always been my home. I've lived in her various apartments on her way to her career, as her career her star has risen. And so she was basically the only person I knew in the industry. And so I was like, Richa, I'm
Oh,
applying to
wow.
this NFDC. Um, I have to list you. So can I list you? You don't really have to produce it, but I just need to list someone. I probably won't get selected. And then once I got selected, I said, okay, I'm selected, but you don't have to come. I'll go and I'll pitch. And she said, no, no, let me read the script. I wanted to produce for a while. And she read the script and she said, I love it. Like, can I actually produce it? Can I come to NFDC? And I was like, yes. And so
Um,
we went to NFDC to do our first pitching together.
okay, so this was the first film that she
Yeah, this
produced.
is her first production.
That's amazing because I'm a huge fan of Richa's. So I remember, I think it's Script Station. I don't.
I think Meher is back. Meher, you're muted, but I think the video seems to be working wherever you are. Maybe the
Yeah,
internet is
I
better.
just moved. I think this is a better spot for right now. And I'm
Yeah.
cognizant that we're running out of time right now. So I'm gonna just ask a question, a very long question over here. I'm just gonna read it out. Was it intentional the moment where Anila is leaving the washroom to get her clothes and ask Shri to leave first, but then just asked him to close his eyes? Um, and that person also wrote that during the Q&A, it was kind of implied that Shri is not malicious, but he's also not better than the other guys who are taking the pictures. He's just smarter about it. So linking the present moment with the secret he shared initially with Mira was that he saw her mother naked, though I don't think he sees her naked, and that was the first time he saw a woman naked. So I just wanted to understand, was it intentional to add kind of like a depth of iffiness to his character where he doesn't insist on getting out or gets out immediately? Tough
Hmm.
question.
Um, I mean, I think if you look at the signs, there is some iffiness in that character, from the beginning. He's a little smart and he knows what he's doing. Um, in that moment, actually, I didn't think that he was not leaving the room on purpose. I think he was being kind of obedient to whatever Auntie wanted. Auntie was like, leave the room. He was like, okay, I will leave the room. Close your eyes. Okay, I will close my eyes. He's
Yeah,
not, I think he was just doing what, I think for me, that moment was more about Anila,
she was
where
being
yeah, she
naughty.
was being a bit naughty. She was like, he's not seeing me, but just the thrill of it is,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, exactly.
she enjoyed. And I think to the point of whether he's like malicious or not, I really love all my characters and they're all complicated. And
Hmm.
he does some problematic things. At the same time, I also have deep compassion for him. He has his own wounds. He has these parents who seem totally neglectful, absent. So he has come into this home where he's very special, he's loved, and he has kind of created a little family for himself. So and
Yeah,
him being manipulative and figuring out people's keys is also a product of him having to move a lot. He's a kid of a diplomat. Dad gets posted here and there, and he moves. And in each place, he suddenly has to figure out how to insert himself into a social circle. So it's as much a survival skill, which is
yeah,
harmful to other people, but I understand where it comes from. So I try not to say he's malicious or not or whatever. A lot of us, he's complicated.
yeah, exactly. And I think we're totally out of time. If you have time
Okay.
to answer one last question, which is basically after the release,
Yeah.
just quickly touching upon it, premiered at Sundance. It did really
Mhm.
well. You won an award. Congrats for that. Did it have its theatrical release? And how have you sort of like concluded its sort of theatrical runs and its exhibition? Or is it still?
Yeah. So basically, after Sundance, uh, the film got bought in various territories and had different lives in different territories. So in India, for instance, it went straight on Amazon Prime. In France, it had a very, to me, a kind of a bigger theatrical. I'm sure it's like normal for a film of this size, but it had a theatrical around the country. In the US, where the market for independent film is sad, it had a very limited theatrical. Like in France, I think it released on 181 screens. In the US, I think it released on 20,
Mhm.
like a much bigger country, English speaking, with a much bigger South Asian diaspora. Uh, but it screened, but in New York, where I'm based, we did like a big grassroots marketing campaign. It played for 6 weeks and it did well. Now and so yeah, it played various festivals. It released, I think recently it released in Brazil and Portugal. So I think it's sort of in its way done. I think for me, the conclusion was the Independent Spirit Awards, which are in the US, they're the Oscars for independent films, you know.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
the film won a Spirit Award
Wonderful. Congrats. I didn't know that.
Feb of
Okay.
this year. And I think
One.
that felt like a ending.
Okay.
And
That was a nice bow on top that wraps it
yeah,
up.
and now I think it's like mostly, I think people see it on flights. It's
Yeah, exactly. That's
flights.
a kind of the posthumous type of, yeah,
Yeah,
anticlimactic ending for that. But
exactly.
thank you so much for letting us screen it over here. It's just a beautiful film. Everybody loved it who watched it. Congrats again, and we look forward to your next film.
Thank you, Meher. Thank you, Samir. Thank you, everyone at Chalti Tasveerain. I'm so happy it's screened there, and I'm glad you're having another one.
Yeah. Take
Okay.
care. Talk to
Bye.
you.
Take care.
Bye, Hafiz.